Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of AC Saturday, my weekly Saturday show where I sit down and talk about anime or comics. Continuing along through my journey through Invincible. Today I'm going to be talking about issues 8, 9, and 10, so spoilers of anything up to and including those issues ahead. Where we left off, or where I left off with issue 7, ended with that great holy shit moment of all of the Guardians in the Globe get slaughtered in like one page, and the next page is basically you seeing Omni-Man having done it. And so 8 picks up pretty much right after that lifts off. You've got Omni-Man talking to some like detective about like who's I guess investigating and trying to figure out what happened. Omni-Man, of course, is playing it like he doesn't know. Who could have done such a thing? Was it Black Samson? No, it couldn't have been him because even when he had his powers, he couldn't have done something like that. We also finally learn what it was in a few issues back that Kate had seen that made her like freak out. It was she saw Rex with multiple forms of duplicate cheating on her. So that was a now we're getting into like high school relationship drama as well. Mark's mom comes in while Eve is like in his room and he's consoling her, but gets the wrong idea and basically says, like, downstairs now, you guys could go off to a deserted island for an hour and I wouldn't know, and so you can't be doing this kind of stuff. You have to be responsible. And Mark's like, it's not like that. No, it's a oops. The dad comes in and says the Guardians of the Globe are dead. We cut to the next day at school, and some cute girl, Amber, basically gives Mark a note saying, like, call me. We find out later that's what the note said. In front of William, who's like, did that just happen? What? Also, one of the physics teacher's victims shows back up at school, Derek Sanders, and he's basically like, they're kind of like, well, he's not going to be well adjusted because his entire torso is a metal piece now. Eve and William both are both talking to Mark and both kind of have to hide the fact that they know his secret identity, so they kind of like awkwardly dance around it, and it's just a nice little funny bit. Then we cut to the main kind of tentpole of this issue is the Guardians of the Globe funeral, where you've got a whole bunch of superheroes kind of there to pay their respects. The blue bad guys from one of the first issues kind of show up, and they're like, we're not here to start any trouble, we're just here to respect a worthy adversary and a fallen foe. And then Samson's butler shows up, having stolen the super suit that was referenced a couple issues back, and he goes crazy and starts shooting, trying to beat up people before Omni-Man finally kind of takes him down. There's a nice little gag scene where William comes over and he's like, hey, so we haven't really talked about it, but it's really cool that you're a superhero, and take me for a flight. And there's it's a little like awkward, but I'm sure like 10 years ago when this started getting written, it was less so, but there's just like a great little panel where they're flying up and Mark is like, this is so gay. That I imagine probably wouldn't be written in that way today, but because it's basically like a no homo kind of sentimentality, but it's a funny little joke. There's also a nice little moment where Debbie and Nolan are kind of in bed talking, and Debbie says, like, something seems off about you, and Nolan kind of snaps back, is like, I'm fine. I mean, like, the Guardians of the Globe were just killed, but I'm fine. And so we start maybe getting maybe a hint that maybe his time in that like alternate dimension messed with his head a little bit, perhaps, or maybe something's going on there. Maybe that's why he killed the Guardians of the Globe. We're trying to maybe keep him still heroic, and he's maybe under mind control of somebody else. So maybe he doesn't even know he did it. We will find out later. That's not the case. He definitely knows. But we don't know his intentions yet still. And then finally at the graveyard, there's like a little duel scene where Derek shows up at the grave of his his Arlington cemetery. He shows up at the grave of the physics teacher and basically like pees on his grave, and then kind of like in the distance we see a couple like nobody grave robbers digging up the immortal one's grave, because apparently the rumor is if you drink from the skull of immortal, you'll get immortality yourself or something like that. They dig up the body, but then the blue baddies show up, and they're basically like, hey, thanks for doing all this work for us, and they kind of abscond with the body. So that was issue 8 there, kind of furthering the Guardians of the Globe storyline, of course, and maybe getting to see a little bit of like the Mark, Eve, and now Amber kind of love triangle that's going to be set up and kind of moving forward there. So a little mix of superhero and high school drama, kind of all folded into one. Issue 9 starts off with a nice little kind of effectively like a cold open scene where this very Star Trek The Next Generation type crew, complete with, instead of Data, I believe the character's name is Download, kind of giving an analysis and saying like, oh, if our engines haven't started, we're going to fly into this sun in the next 6 minutes or something like that. The interplanetary bureaucrat from a few issues back that Mark fought, basically like saves the day for them, but then he's like, this detour's already taken me too long, I've got to get to Earth, and that's kind of all we see of him. Mark celebrates his birthday with some friends and family and zombie movies. The Pentagon appoints Robot, who was already going to be joining the Guardians of the Globe, but now in its new status, the Pentagon basically says, we're taking it over because obviously the alter ego benefactors that were funding this are all dead, so we're taking it over and we want you to like rebuild the team. So Robot invites Mark and Eve to try out, and then the big thing of this is that we end up seeing kind of a little bit of what the new Guardians of the Globe is going to look like. There's a nice little scene where Rex, cocky after his tryout, basically picks a fight with this little girl who ends up being called Monster Girl because she kind of hulks out and turns into this crazy giant monster and starts beating the hell out of Rex, and everybody's just fine with it until Mark's finally like dude, I don't like the guy because he cheated on my friend, but still. So he goes to punch Monster Girl, who then immediately reverts to her little girl form, and somebody's like, dude, he just punched that girl, or something like he hit that little girl, I think is the exact quote. So it's a nice little kind of joke about that duality. And then we end up seeing the new Guardians of the Globe lineup in Duplicate, Shrinking Ray, Monster Girl, Black Samson, which is like a question mark because they have been mentioning all along that he lost his powers, and even with this super suit that he's now got back, he's not going to be nearly what he was when he apparently had powers. And then Rex, lastly. Rex Splode as the last one. But Robot also mentions, there's always an open invitation for you, Invincible. We'd love to have you on the team. And Invincible's like, sorry, like with school and life and stuff, I've just got too much other stuff on my plate. I don't have the time right now. Maybe down the line. And by that, I think he means that he wants to have girlfriend time with Amber because she comes over to study, and then and Eve ends up, of course, catching them kissing, and so again, more movement in that little love triangle spot. And then lastly, we end up in this issue seeing that the Blue Brothers, Blue Baddies, have managed to reconnect Immortal's head to his body, and they revive him, hoping to kind of control him and whatever, but he flies off into a rage into the night. Then lastly for today, issue 10 starts off with Invincible having this fight with a new bad guy, Dr. Seismic, who uses like sound blasts to actually do a pretty good job of fighting off Invincible. He, multiple times throughout this fight kind of gets the upper hand. Finally, Invincible kind of has him like captured and ready to go, and Dr. Seismic says, no, I'll never go with you, and hits him with one more blast, falling into like a canyon, a crevice, something like that. and blasting Mark off to like a wall. So we don't know if he's dead or if he like somehow evaded that, but he basically like escapes Mark's clutches, and then we find out that this fight was all at Mount Rushmore, and Mark has basically saved Mount Rushmore for a nice little like world building vignette kind of thing. And there's also I don't see this, and admittedly I'm not reading comics all that much, so I saw this little thing in this issue that I liked, because it kind of breaks and defies the conventions of comics, where like Mark, after this fight, kind of there's a little corner panel of him like flying off, being like, I can get used to this. And what's nice about it is that like his arms in flight basically go outside of the panel to kind of give it like he's flying out of the comic book into like the white space of the margins and stuff. And so I was like, that's a nice little kind of breaking the barrier thing there. I'm sure it's used, fairly frequently in comics, but it's the first instance I really kind of come across it in my limited use, or at least the first time I noticed it. So I just wanted to call that out as a nice little like, that's the fun that he's having. Kind of it can't be confined by the frames themselves. When he gets home, we see Nolan starting to have this conversation with Mark, which we've seen in the past, him kind of have these like big dramatic "son, we need to talk" moments. Like the last time we saw him, I think in the last issue, he was like on the top of a mountain. So he says here, "Son, we need to talk." And Mark's just like, dude, like, I know this is about Amber, but Mom already tried to have the birds and the bees talk. I've got school in the morning. I don't want to do this right now. So he kind of brushes him off. At school the next day, we have a little funny scene between Mark and William, where William is basically giving Mark crap about wanting to go to a comic shop after school and picking up some things. And then Mark basically throws it back in his face, well, I'm the one with the girlfriend, so Nolan is exhausted, trying to pick up for the slack that the new Guardians of the Globe are kind of leaving for him, because they're not, pulling their weight in the, world-saving departments. We see the guy that was investigating the murder back a couple issues ago back in the beginning of this set of 3. Find out his name's Damien Darkblood, and he basically is like a demon detective. So probably used to be a bad guy, but has like come over to the side of good, and so he's investigating it. And there's like a couple other people already at the scene of the crime also looking into it. One is like Robo-Arm Girl, and then the other one is, I just jotted down the note, a Nick Fury type, because he's a tall guy in a suit with like an eye patch on. Black Samson goes to see his butler, who's like in super villain confinement, and basically says, I'm on the Guardians of the Globe again. I'm gonna try and use my pull to I think you're just damaged. I think you just need therapy and help. I think we can save you that way, so I'm gonna try and get you out of here. I'm gonna try and use my connections and my pull to get you out of confinement here and get you the treatment you need. And then there's a funny little meta scene between Mark and like some well-known comic artist that he likes is there doing a signing. He quickly dashes away, gets all of his comics, and comes back, and they're like, oh yeah, they were just in my car. I had them, nearby. And the two of them have a lovely little scene about like, oh man, I love that you're able to get this stuff out on a monthly basis. It's amazing. I love it so much. How do you do it? And the comic artist, in a very like meta as Robert Kirkman kind of moment, says basically like, oh yeah, I just reuse art and stuff, assets for dramatic pauses and stuff like that to cut down on the workload and get things out in a timely fashion. And Mark's like, do people even notice that? And then it cuts to like 3 of the same panel of Mark, and then 3 of the same panel of the comic book guy, where basically like a couple little speech bubbles get added in, and it's like, no. So that was a funny little haha, I get it. That's a clever gag there. And then lastly, in this issue, we have Omni-Man fighting off this big giant squid thing. He kind of defeats that, but right as he does, Immortal comes flying in and beats the crap out of him, and they like fly up into the atmosphere and take their fight up there. But a news report that was, covering the squid attack sees this, and they say, we can't confirm, we can't see them, they're way up there, we don't know what's going on, but eyewitness reports say this was the Immortal back from the dead fighting Omni-Man, so we don't know what's going on. Mark sees this report, and he basically dashes off to go join him. Debbie sees the report and has this look of concern on her face of what's going on. Why is, Immortal Man attacking my husband? Why is he back from the dead? Why is he attacking my husband? And in the fight, Omni-Man basically screams, "I killed you once, I can do it again," and tears Immortal in two, splits him in half at the torso this time instead of the head, all right after Mark has shown up. Doesn't know that he's there yet, but Mark shows up. You see him in kind of the background of these shots, and he just has this look of horror on his face and his dad this ends with him saying, "Son, we need to talk." Bloodied and just having just murdered this person a second time. So I look forward to seeing where that conversation goes. So those are issues 8, 9, and 10 of Invincible. I'm really enjoying it. I admittedly, after last week's cliffhanger, I basically immediately read through these 3 issues, and so I've been kind of sitting on this for a week. I reread through them kind of in the lead up to this to kind of jot down my notes and figure out what I wanted to kind of talk about here. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's I don't know if I'm going to stick with doing this 3-issue thing a week, because I kind of just want to keep reading ahead. I've got the full Compendium 1, Compendium 2 showed up this week because I just kind of want to start burning through this, and so I will have to figure out what I want to do content-wise around this, but I don't want to have to sit there and wait every week. So I'm really enjoying Invincible. It's a great fun companion piece to having recently got into My Hero Academia on the anime side of things, because I'm just loving the juggling the politics of superhero-ness with school and whatnot. This definitely, I think, has more of a focus of established superheroes instead of superheroes in training. Even Invincible is basically picking up all this stuff on the fly, and he's good to go. As opposed to Deku, who's still trying to, after a season, get control over his powers and stuff. Yeah, I'm enjoying it. Superheroes are just so much fun. Speaking of superheroes, you can check out my Black Panther impressions from Thursday, the spoiler-free version of that. I'll link that in the comments below. I'll be back on Monday with my spoiler-filled version. I'm probably going to go try and see that again, maybe tonight even. And yeah, so superheroes are awesome. I'm enjoying them. I'm really enjoying Invincible. Let me know what you think of the comic in the comments below. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. And until next time, from here at the Trove, treasure your friends.